All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Untitled Nerd Show, episode 2. We're still waiting on Nerdy, but he should be here soon. I am, as always, AD. This is new co-host, Tara.
Hello.
We are Player 22.
I like that. We are Player 22.
We are. There he is.
Dun.
There he is.
Nerdy's here.
Just in time, Nerdy.
Hey, what's up?
What's going
Sorry
on?
about that.
Let's see.
Should be able to see me.
I'm not getting your camera yet.
It's because I didn't turn it on because I'm a dummy.
There he is.
Nerdy's here.
Hey,
Again.
I'm here. Let me get
There he
your
is.
thing up and make sure I'm hosting you like I'm supposed to be.
Mr. Soul Creek has been waiting patiently for you.
Ah, well. I mean, if you want to blame someone, I guess blame me. To be fair, somebody was late, and then I got into a conversation and had her help Nerdy wife. So
Yeah.
somebody
Try to be on time, AD.
Somebody.
Jeez.
It was really me. I was just blaming Tara. My fault.
It's all.
Sorry, I was late due to who I am as a person.
She's just
at
late.
least she's what's the word I'm looking for? She knows herself.
Consistently late.
I am not going to lie to you. I worked a lot this week, and so my significant other had to wake me up not once, not twice, but 3 times. And the last time he finally said, "You're going to be late." I was like, oh.
I should have told her 9:30.
I should get up.
I should be hosting. Now, dang it, we did this before, and it should have hosted you. And how did I get to hosting of this new thing? It's in channel, right?
Yeah. I think it's still in the same setting. It's just you might have to take a different way to get there.
Channel. I mean, it should be hosting you. I think I put you as like top auto host. It should host you right now. Great auto host. Host list. Yeah, Player 22's top host. It should be hosting you. Oh, no, hopefully it'll bounce in and host you in a minute.
Germans are never late. Huh?
I'm half German in me. The German and the Irish are like
fail
constantly at war with each other.
You fail as a German.
The Irish won this morning, obviously.
I mean, to be fair, Germans aren't late. They just blitzkrieg everybody.
They're not late because they get to decide what time.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's exactly how it goes.
Yes, yes, Mr. Soul. All I have to say about that.
All right. Are we ready to start proper?
Okay, there we go. Now, yeah, it's there. It's got you guys.
Okay. So we just did our intros as you were calling me. So, Nerdy, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm the Nerdy Farmer. I am a variety streamer, and I'm here to do the Untitled Nerd Show with my good buddy, Player 22. Yeah, I can't talk this morning. It's going to turn out well.
Buddies. You're good buddies.
Yeah, so
that's right.
Like we said, this is
like I consider Player 22 and his co-host kind of like a
unit.
Yeah, it's like a combination being.
We're a team.
Yeah, we're
there you go.
It's a package deal.
AD's the beauty, and I'm the brains.
I am not Player 22. We are Player 22.
Wait. So does that make you're like the beauty and he's the beast?
No. He's the beauty. I'm the beast.
Yeah, she's the mean one.
Is that what it is? Is that what it is? Okay.
I'm the nice one. All right. So, let's go ahead and introduce our first topic. This wasn't going to be our first topic, but, in light of recent news, it is now our first topic. So, delays. Delays.
Delays is the topic of the day.
2020 seems to be the year of the delays. It's like, hey, it's like Oprah. You get a delay.
We talked about it. Started
Everybody gets a delay.
Everybody's getting delays. You know what? Yeah, here's my thought processes on delays, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit. I've been saving it for this. Here's my thoughts on delays. If a person works for another person or is at school, and you agree upon a date to give something, like to present a presentation or have something that you're supposed to meet a deadline, you go to your boss or your teacher or whatever and you say, hey, I'm just not gonna make that hit time that I told you that you made plans around. I'm just not going to make that. We're going to take another 6 months to a year. I mean, I'm fairly certain that's not going to turn out well for you. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah. Okay. So my whole thing is, would you expect your boss to praise you for saying, hey, well, at least you didn't give me a half-assed project. You at least had the intestinal fortitude to tell me that you just aren't going to be able to make it. Do you think you should get praised for something like that?
No, definitely not. But so I have what I'm wondering is I don't know much about CD Projekt Red, but um, how well managed are they
Well,
in terms to other like in relation to other companies? Because I know that there have been issues like with Telltale specifically, where the CEO doesn't listen to the employees and he's like, get this shit out, I don't care how you do it. And it got to the point where they were basically just making the same game over and over to get them out quicker.
No, and I get that. And CD Projekt Red is actually one of those companies who, in the past, they've been one of those people. We're going to do it right, and it'll be done when it's done. But it's overall, it's not just CD Projekt Red. If you look at the release schedule from like the last 6 months of what was supposed to come out and then what got delayed. I mean, just off the top of my head, obviously Cyberpunk 2077, of Gods and Monsters got delayed, of Watch Dogs got delayed, the Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 got delayed, Final Fantasy VII Remake got delayed. All of these things continuously are getting delayed. And it's not so much the delays that piss me off. And they piss me off because you don't give a date to somebody and then tell them, oh, we're not going to meet that date.
Yeah.
I that's not the part that really pisses me off the most. Like that, it's upsetting, but I'm the type of person who understands shit happens. The most upsetting part to me is the fact that the fucking community, like a bunch of hypocrites, are like praising this. So like, well, a late game later, can become a good game, but a crappy game released now stays a crappy game forever. No, that's just a fucking excuse. Stop fucking enabling these people, because you know what? When they announce these delays, I don't see these companies rushing out to give people refunds. I don't see refunds being dished out to people. And that's the biggest thing.
Do we think that's the motivation behind it? They want to go ahead and put a date so they can start pre-selling, even though they know they're not going to hit that gate.
That's definitely part of it.
For some of them, I 100% think that is it. Do I think I think that was the case with CD Projekt Red? I doubt it. They're actually one of the good guys, or at least I'd like to believe they're one of the good guys. But for a lot of the big companies like Ubisoft and all these other big companies, absolutely. I think that is definitely the motivation. Let's put a date out there so people start giving us money. And I 100% believe that it is a tactic, and it is poor management, and it is just poor time management and resource management. It's 100% of all these things combined. And the fact that the gaming community will in one week attack a company like Game Freak, which we'll get into the Pokemon thing because that's a topic I want to bring up, but they'll attack a company and be like, well, we need to hold these companies to a standard, blah, 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 blah. But then at the same damn week, when somebody says they're delaying a game, like, well, it's okay because, we're going to allow them to miss this date and we're going to praise them for it. Fuck no. You either hold people to a high standard or you don't. Don't be a bunch of hypocrites. It infuriates me.
I'm a firm believer in under promise, over deliver in
Well,
pretty much everything.
and that's exactly how good management should do it. I kind of gave this example before when I kind of talked about it with people. When I was in the military towards the end of my career before I got out with my injuries, I I was a training NCO, and then I also worked for S3, which means I was in charge of the training for hundreds and hundreds of individuals. If a first sergeant or the battalion commander or sergeant major came to me and said, "Hey, when can you have this stuff done?" I would look at what would be the exact time that I think I could have it done by, and then I would tack on a couple weeks, and then give him that date. That way, if shit came up, something happened, something went wrong, which inevitably it always does, I had time to adjust for it. And if it, nothing did happen and I got it done early, well, then that just gave me a little extra time to put some icing on the cake to make myself look good and everybody else look good.
I also would argue from a business standpoint that you don't have to. I think that they could make just as much money if they said, "Hey, we're going to release this in 2 years," and then in a year, surprise, it's out. Like there would be just as much of a excitement, frenzy, rush.
Well,
You know what I
Bethesda
mean?
used to do stuff like that. Bethesda used to be, when they were a good studio, they wouldn't tell you when the game was coming out until like a couple months before the game come out. Until like they've basically already packaged everything, everything's off and shipped and ready to go. And they just had to set a date where the stores could actually sell them. Another good example of a company who's doing it right, and I can't believe I was saying it, but Sony with Ghost of Tsushima, they haven't given anybody a date. They have literally said it's going to come out sometime in the summer of 2020, and that's what. There's no date. There's no. So like when somebody wants to, if they want to pre-order Tsushima, they can go. Okay, well I know that they said it's supposed to come out sometime in this fairly large window of time. So if they had originally planned for it to be out, in June, and it doesn't come out till August, they could just as easily say, well, we said summer. Like that's the right way to do it in my opinion.
Yeah. So let's see. Socrates says he worked in the industry, management overestimate employees and hope to make more profit. See, that's the way. When you were talking about the army, I think that's kind of a difference with the army and the Marines, or at least the unit that I was with the Marines, because let's be real here, my leadership was pretty shitty. But
Mm-hmm.
I worked for the type of leaders who they didn't ask you when you could get it done. They gave you the deadline.
Oh, I had leaders
So
like that too.
yeah,
And when you didn't meet this unreasonable deadline, they shit all over people.
yeah,
Like, trust me, I could see both sides of it, but that's where the industry is wrong. Like if a company is doing that, if a publisher is telling a developer to meet an unreasonable time frame, which is probably what happened with, say, Anthem, for example, the industry, like the consumers, all of us, the community, we should be up in arms. We should be defending the developers and saying, why didn't you ask them when they could get it done? Just like we should be up in arms and saying, hey, you gave us this date, why didn't you make it? And not praising them for it. We should be angry, not saying, well, I'm glad that they delayed it so they could polish it. No, that should not be the initial reaction. The initial reaction should be, why the hell is it delayed? Who's to blame?
I don't necessarily agree with the thought process that a game that takes longer is a better game either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do really good games take a while? Probably. But
look at Star Citizen.
Shitty games can take a while too.
Yeah, it's 100%. Well, look at Star Citizen. That game's been in development hell. They've taken money from so many people for so long that now people are starting to sue them to get their money back because they've had millions and millions and millions of dollars given to them, and they still don't have a proper working game. All they still have is basically a tech demo. And it's insane that the community is still allowing this praise to happen when it comes to delays. Like it shouldn't be a praise. And don't get me wrong. If a developer has shit that happens, there are games out there that just get stuck in development hell because of legal issues and stuff like that. That's fine. But they need to be transparent. I mean, I think CD Projekt Red really screwed the pooch in how they announced the delay. For example, they didn't, send out emails to people or say things like that. They put it out in a tweet. Okay. Thank God there's a lot of people following CD Projekt Red as a developer in these tweets and everything to understand and to put out this information as YouTubers and content creators like ourselves. But the reality of it is, if you don't have a Twitter, you probably wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So, and when it happened, I wrote on there that I'm not okay with this. This is not, something we should be praising. And I had people reply to my tweet saying like, hey, I put in for leave. I took a week off for this game to come out because I've been excited for it, because it's been in development for 5 or 7 years or whatever it has been. So there was no even thought that there could be a delay because it's been developed for so long. And people, put time off. Like and if you're like anybody, like my wife, for example, if she has to have time off, wants to have time off, she has to put it in so far in advance. So these people who have this time off now, they don't have anything. Like they have a week of leave that they don't have, a reason to take the leave.
Yeah, I don't I definitely don't agree with praising a company for, delaying. I think that's that's obviously too much. But I can also see that maybe because we've been talking about Bethesda, I can also see that maybe this is kind of coming off of a bit of relief from people who have been through the Bethesda experience or other companies like Telltale, where that they companies release games too soon and they're like full of bugs or they're just shitty. So I think some people may be coming off of that and saying like, oh well, I'd rather have a delayed game that takes their time rather than a rush game that sucks because I've been through that.
Mr. Soul Creek, did they put it on their Steam page? Because I didn't see anything when the tweet came out. It might have been later. But I do know for a fact that the first thing that they put out was the tweet. And even if they just put it up on their Steam page and put it on the tweet, I would like to know if anybody who's pre-ordered the game, if they got an email, if they reached out to those people individually. I can almost guarantee the people who pre-ordered it through consoles like PlayStation or Xbox, I'm sure they didn't get shit told to them. So, like I said, it's like, and I agree with you. I think a lot of companies, like you said, 22, is that the industry is doing a knee-jerk reaction because nobody wants to be the next Fallout 76.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I think that's a big thing. Like nobody wants to be the next Fallout 76. And this whole let's delay it so we can make sure it looks good and it is good to go is from that, and the community praising them for that is because of the Fallout 76 debacle and any other game that's come out that was incomplete, Anthem and whatnot. So like I agree it is, but like it just infuriates me to see all these people praising it. It doesn't make any damn sense. Like I can't think of a single situation in my adult life or even in my younger teen years where if I came to the person who's in charge of me ever and told them, "Hey, I know we agreed on this set time or this set date, but I'm just not going to make that." Like that never turns out well.
I say like, as if they communicate it well, then maybe the best you could do is be understanding. But yeah, don't praise a company for saying, "Hey, we're gonna delay this."
Well, and people just don't understand the far-reaching effects this can have on people. Like I said, the people who took time off.
Yeah.
That's the little dude. Oh, it sucks you took time off, but it's a little. But what about the bigger people? People who are content creators who may or may not have licensed out art to be made for when the stuff was supposed to be released, and now they don't have that money to license out different art for when a different game they're going to have to play during that release window is. How about the people who own stores and now have to change everything around to buy new products to put into that spot that they originally were going to have to sell that product for? Like it's got far-reaching effects that a lot of people don't understand and don't take into account. It was roughly 1 hour after the tweet. Okay. I mean, like I said, CDPR is usually the good guys, and they're just the ones getting the most flack, I think, because they're the biggest and most recent release. It still doesn't change the fact that the delays have become such a norm, and then it's become such a norm that people are praising the delays. It's become a problem.
Yeah, Mr. Soul, I hear what you're saying, but I think the problem here is the original promise. I think it would be better not to make a promise than to make a promise that you can't keep.
Or at the very least, like you said, Tara, it's to put a sorry about the dog barking. But to put yourself in a position where you have enough time to adjust to the inevitable bad thing that's going to happen. Like, if you think a game's going to be able to release, if you think you can finish it by, January 2020, then set your release date for, July 2020.
Yep.
That way you have that 6 month of cushion. And that way, because, I'm going to tell you right now, they'll get way more praise if they did that. You waited an extra 6 months, and for that 6 months, you're able to further QA/QC, get any bugs that you missed out, or make an additional free little free DLC to throw in there on the day of release. People would be much more praising of that than anything. It's money. Well, I can't see how it's money if they're taking everybody's money for freaking DLC or for fucking pre-orders. Like,
I think it's especially bad with specifically Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy, because these games have been worked on for years and years, and to have a release date finally and then delayed even further is like, Final Fantasy is weird though, because they just delayed it 1 month. Like,
yeah, I can't. Well, and I read, and I read, and this is like, the frogs, the water made by frogs, gay, conspiracy theory level things. But I read somewhere the whole reason why they pushed it back is because they made a deal with other companies, because April was so heavy that they pushed it back to a certain date, and that way it wasn't so heavy and other games could shine, since Cyberpunk was going to take all the shine and Final Fantasy VII was in that window. There's so many theories were floating around. One of the bigger theories was they were pushing it back so they could coincide it with the release of the new consoles, until CDPR, being, like I said, one of the better companies out there, shot that down and said that we don't even have a port in the works for the new console generation. It is coming out for Xbox One and PS4, not the next generation. At least not anytime soon.
Yeah, and as far as changing it to a less heavy date, that's definitely the reasoning I see behind the Avengers delay, because May was so heavy with like big titles. Plus, I mean, there's not been enough hype with that game. It's a fucking Avengers game.
Yeah, I was mentioning, because I'm super into Marvel as of late, and I was like, I didn't even know there was an Avengers game coming out, and he commented that's probably why they pushed it back, so they can do some more promo.
Like, this is a huge title. It's the Avengers. I mean, we got all the big actors. We got Troy Baker, Laura Bailey, Nolan North. I mean, come on. Like,
Avengers
push
is one of those
out.
games that non-regular gamers will go buy and play because they're Marvel fans, right?
Oh, hey, Tara, what happened to your arm?
Oh, this old thing?
Gaming accident.
I died for like the third time, and AD broke my arm, so I would learn a lesson.
Oh, geez.
No, I was actually snowboarding, and I fell.
Oh, it's not too serious. I hope. Is it? Is it an
Uh,
actual break?
it's just broken.
Oh, okay.
It's broken.
She played this past week.
I did. So week before last, I was still in my splint, which covered my fingers. So we did the Batman Telltale Batman game, and AD was my hands. I told him which choices to make and all that. And then this past week, now that I have the cast and I have my fingers accessible, I actually was able to work the controller.
Gotcha.
It was a
Well, that's good. That's
very good step in the right direction for me. So
AD being your hands could get awkward, you know.
Only
true.
Only in the gaming world. Nowhere else.
Nowhere else.
She has other hands for that.
That's true.
But I think you hit a good point with the Avengers thing, Tara. I think that you're right that they probably pushed that back because there's not enough hype on with the game.
Yeah, that I don't, and I won't proclaim to be the expert. I'm the resident noob here at Player 22, but I've learned enough to know that the Avengers is not a game that real gamers are chomping at the bit for. It's going to be people want to play it because the movies are over and they want more content.
I'm kind of. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was gonna say on Soul Creek's comment. I really don't expect it to be like a great game. But it's an Avengers game, and I love the Avengers, so I'm gonna enjoy it.
It'll sell well because the Marvel name and Avengers name is attached to it.
Yeah.
Does it look like something that's industry's standard setting? No. But I think it'll be an okay game.
I'm not even
once again with that game that when they said they were delaying that, I heard praise across the board again. So it's just like. It's like, come on, guys! Like,
yeah, I'm not even sure still like what the game really is. Like, is it just a basic action adventure game? I can't see it having like a super in-depth combat system. I can't see it being like a super
like
great
an isometric, like hack and slash is the best way to put it. I think
isometric.
Top down.
Yeah, I know, but like I don't see it being that. It seems more. From what I saw, it seemed more like a
third person, maybe
third person action game. Yeah, looks like.
Well, I thought it was more isometric because it looked like you had a team that you're filling out. I don't know a whole lot about it myself because I'm not too excited about it. Which I should get excited about it because all the games that I was excited about got delayed.
Yeah.
Oh man! Talk about this has been an infuriating. Like and. Here's the thing, like they've delayed these games. I'm actually happy that Avengers, and I'll say this much, I'm not happy it got delayed, but I'm happy that they delayed it to the time period that they delayed it to.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
It comes out in June, July now. What is it?
September.
September.
Yeah.
See, I don't understand this, and this kind of goes in with delays and everything a little bit. Why the hell do game companies not release shit? Like I know a little bit because of E3, but like. The summer.
I know. Yeah, we talked about that.
Biggest time frame in the world that you would think. Like, I understand why they release games around Christmas, and I understand why they release games. Why they've started releasing games in early spring, because that really coincides with American frugal spending periods because of tax returns. But like seriously. Summertime. Come on. It just doesn't make any sense that they don't do it.
Yeah, especially people with kids, who want a way to keep their kids from getting in trouble during the summer. Just give them some fucking games to play.
Like as much as as much as I am against using electronics as a babysitter for your child.
Yeah.
I as a parent, I also know the convenience of saying, hey, go play a video game for a few hours while I take care of this.
Well, and I would like just to piggyback on that. I think I agree with you up to a certain age, but then, children, when they become teenagers, they turn into like alien creatures that are hell bent on making your life hell. So if they're in their room playing a video game, I at least know that they're not like shoplifting at Hot Topic or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Sounds like you've done
they're
that
not out at the
before.
party drinking with their buddies, and then
Yeah.
get busted and brought home by the police officer.
Yeah. Like if they're in their room with the door shut, like they're doing two things. They're playing video games or they're watching porn. Either way, they're not going to get an STD.
Yeah.
They're not going to get arrested. Like,
Hey.
Well, depending on the type of porn they're watching.
well, that's
Yeah.
true. We won't go there.
I mean, between me and my two older sisters, I was the kid who never got in trouble because I sat at home and played video games all the time while they were out partying and shit. So
Well,
Which,
and to comment what you said, Mr. Silkrig, about same of movies, people are not at home. Well, with the movies, that you have your blockbuster movie releases though. Usually, May, June, and July are when some of the biggest blockbusters are released. I would think that they would want to do the same thing in the video game industry. Honestly,
yeah. I mean, the big Avengers movies have been coming out in May. So
you got your summer blockbusters. That's kind of where that phrase has come from.
And I don't know if this is because of where we live, but I feel like during like fall and winter, there's a lot less going out. Like I'm much less likely to go to the movie theater because it gets so dark so early. I feel like there's a tendency to go straight home after work or school or whatever you do and just be at home, right? Whereas with games, you would think they would, I don't know. I think you could probably have an argument for whichever way you were inclined, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like I said, everybody's gonna have their own viewpoint on stuff, but it just seems like they're not tapping that market very well. Like they could so, and as a consumer, I would appreciate them spreading out the game releases a lot more anyway. I was super excited to start seeing them a couple years back when they started releasing bigger game titles in the early spring, end of January, time frame, because it was great. Because then I didn't get, Broketober wasn't as broke. It was nice to be able to say, okay, now I get to get a good game in April or May or March.
Yeah,
but
I am. Yeah, for all the talk about being disappointed with delays, I am kind of at the same time relieved about Avengers because that clears up my spring and summer a little bit. So
yeah, well, see, but the problem is for me, they cleared out the entire spring for me. Now I don't know what the hell I'm gonna play.
Yeah.
Like I was gonna play Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, that's gone. I was gonna play Cyberpunk, that's gone. Like they cleared out my schedule. So now I got to figure out what the hell I'm doing. Then again, I'm playing The Witcher 3, so that might take me, forever to beat. And we're playing DOS 2 for 6 hours a week. So that'll take us a couple of years to finish.
So speaking of The Witcher,
oh yeah, do we want to jump into that right now?
What about it?
Well, just talk about the show in general. Have you watched it?
Before we go forward, have both of you finished the series?
I have. Have
Sarah? You? I've not finished.
How much have you watched?
Yeah, what episodes you've gotten to?
Very little.
Okay, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's an exceptionally great show, and I don't want to ruin it for you. Or spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it in chat.
I can tell you that I made it to the part where The Witcher meets that, and I'm gonna not use correct terminology because I'm not familiar with the game at all. I had never heard of it until the series came out because Netflix. And I made it to the part where the voodoo woman, magic woman,
Yennefer,
was trying to possess the djinn, and then they did the sex.
Okay.
That was the last. That's the last thing I saw.
Okay.
It gets better.
So yeah.
Okay.
So let me ask you.
There is more doing the sex.
Yeah. Let me
like that.
Let me ask you this: like being what 4 episodes in, maybe 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
How well are you following the story so far?
I'm gonna be honest. I feel like and I'm not comparing these two series by any stretch, but I feel like I did when I was about this far into Game of Thrones. I'm starting to understand the world they live in a little better, but I'm struggling to grasp where this is going, or you know what I mean?
Are the timelines kind of throwing you off?
Yes. So
Okay.
it took me probably up until this point to figure out the time jumping.
Yeah.
And this is by no means spoiler, so I can tell you this much. By the end of the series, everything converges and makes sense.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I actually wanted to make a point, or maybe kind of ask a question on that, because if you releasing a full season, an 8-episode season all at once, and the show not really, or the story not really coming together until the very end, is that a good strategy when you're trying to keep new viewers, when you're expecting someone who's never heard of The Witcher, never seen anything about The Witcher? Is that a good strategy to make them have to watch the whole thing, or expect them to want to watch the whole thing to finally get it at the end?
Well, that was I would say for the casual watcher, it might not be. And
That's
that
what I'm
was
thinking.
that was one of the big issues that people had with one of the websites that reviewed it. I want to say it was IGN, actually, because they said that they skipped a bunch of episodes and everything, and people were like, "Well, if you're being paid to review the damn show, watch the damn show, because you skipping the episodes, you miss everything. Like, you miss the important parts and the important stuff that connects into everything that shows you what's happening." I would say the benefit to them doing it this way and releasing the entire season at one time, it doesn't leave people hanging. You could sit there, like, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could sit there and binge watch The Witcher from 8 a.m. to like 9 p.m. at night, get everything watched and get the full complete story and understand what's happening. Versus if you were doing episodically, one episode per week, I think it would be much more dangerous to do it that way.
Okay.
In my opinion. I mean, but the cool thing is that since they released it all in one season, I look at it less as of episodic, as more of like a mini series, or like, you remember the old school HBO mini series? Look at it more like that, because this season of The Witcher was the setup.
So there are going to be more seasons. The story has not been told.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, they've already confirmed that the next season comes out in like 2021, but because this season followed the first book, The Last Wish, and a couple other stories. I think of the second book, but the first book or so was exactly how this season was set up, where it was a bunch of short stories, and it was meant to build the world, give you an understanding, and show you how and where the main characters came together and how they converged and where they came from. So think of this season as like the prequel, or the actual startup and character development and world building. Season 2 is where you're going to get your real meat and potatoes, I think, of actual characters interacting with each other and stuff.
So what's interesting for me, well, what makes my perspective very different is that I had no knowledge of the books or the game. I just saw this new show on Netflix, right? When you're scrolling through and they show you the previews. And I love fantasy stories that aren't, basically me watching somebody else's regular life, right? I don't find escape in that. So
you like that fantastic setting.
Yes, where like I'm watching stuff that I couldn't happen outside my house, right? And so that was what got me into it. And then when I was talking to AD about it, I can't remember if you asked me if I was watching it or what, but he is the one that told me it was a game. And as soon as he said that, with my new knowledge of it, I was like, well, that makes complete sense. Now that from what I've seen, I can see Witcher as a video game character. Like, that makes a lot of sense. And it actually made me realize I was going to have to watch more of it to get the full, to really get it, to get what, because that made me realize that I'm actually being introduced to a whole universe that and I think people that are into, whether you're a gamer or whether you just like, this kind of fiction or these kind of shows and TV shows, I think once you know that, you're like, okay, well, I know it's going to take me a little bit to fully understand what's going on here. And I think that may be what led them to release the whole thing.
Right.
Because even by the end of this, right, you may be introduced to the universe, but you still aren't really sure where we're going with this.
Well, yeah, and keep in mind the 3 games, which are 1, 2, and 3, they're literally the ass end of Geralt's story. Like that's the Witcher 1, 2, and 3 are like Geralt's, like it's like the final 3 of the final 3 trilogy. When you finish Witcher 3, which I have not actually ever finished the entirety of the game, I'm working on it now. That's supposed to be his. This is his end. This is the end of his story. No more Geralt's. We're gonna and even CD Projekt has said that. We're gonna do stuff in the Witcher's universe, but it's not gonna involve Geralt anymore. His story is told. So keep in mind, like everything you're getting now is gonna be well before anything you
before
see
the games
in the games
started.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and I was tempted to compare the whole full season release versus episode by episode with The Mandalorian. And I don't want to get too much into The Mandalorian because Chris isn't here, and I know Chris wanted to talk about that. But it's different in that your average viewer of The Mandalorian is very well aware of the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
They know the rules that we operate within. Whereas this is you're introducing people to a new thing.
And even I would have to say, having read the books, having played the games, because I've finished Witcher 1 and 2, and like I said, I've done enough of Witcher 3 to understand what's happening, and now watch the series. I would even say that the Witcher TV series, the Netflix series, they're doing their own adaptation of certain things also. Because, like, for example, in the video games, Geralt would carry around 2 swords with him everywhere he went. In the books, that didn't happen. He would grab the sword based upon what he was going after, whether it be people or monsters. He kept his swords on his horse, on Roach. The same, they kind of did the same thing with the Netflix series, but in both the books and the games, there was more of an emphasis on like the mutations of the Witcher and the signs, and it almost seemed like the alchemy portion of it, like the potions, was kind of like a secondary thing. Whereas in the CV series, it almost seems like the Witcher doesn't become the Witcher until he pops that potion. So they put more emphasis definitely on the potion.
So I was gonna ask about differences. I mean, I haven't read the books or played the games, but I've read a little bit about just the general lore of The Witcher. And one thing I was confused about was in the series, Geralt meets Triss first. I thought he knew Yennefer long before he met Triss.
Well, the Triss he meets may not be the Triss, because you've played Witcher 3, correct?
I haven't.
Okay.
No.
In the Witcher 3, and in the Witcher 2, the Triss you meet may not be the Triss that you are used to. In the games, Triss is like this big bosomed, fiery haired, sex icon.
So like me, basically.
Okay, sure, whatever. Yeah.
If you would have considered yourself a sex icon, I'm not going to argue with you.
I mean, sorry. Just for the record, that was extra funny because if there is an opposite of big bosomed, that would be me. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew I was being completely sarcastic. Anyway, back to your point.
But in this TV series, you will meet a character named Coral. I don't know if you met her yet or not, Tara.
I don't think she has. I think Coral's like the last episode or the second to
Yeah, but
last.
she doesn't play a huge role.
Yeah.
So it's not like really a spoiler. But in the books, Coral is described and if you notice in the TV series, Coral very much looks more like
Yeah. I know what you're
what
getting at, and I have read this. I have read about
yeah.
this, so
Yeah, because eventually in the books, uh, because of the big event that happens in the last episode that I can't talk about on stream, um, people change.
yeah.
I don't want to spoil things for Tara or anybody else watching. So there are things like so Geralt won't necessarily recognize Triss for who Triss is. And if you haven't played the games, you also don't understand the whole story behind Triss and um Yen, and it gets really good. Like if you're a person who loves a good romance but wants some cheeky business in your romance, that definitely kind of like those love triangle type things. Uh, sit down and enjoy The Witcher, because the books, the TV series, and the video games does not shy. It's not going to. Well, I hope the TV series doesn't, but it will not shy away from that love triangle. Trust me, you're going to get it. So if you liked, I can't believe I'm making this relation, but if you liked Twilight, as far as the love triangle aspect, you are probably going to enjoy the Witcher romance aspects.
So there's two things going on here that I want us to talk about. And Mr. Soul, you just touched on one of them, but I want to touch on this other thing first, because I think the cultural thing layers on top of. I, I think we've had discussion recently, and I'm going to go a little meta with this outside of just The Witcher, but we have a lot of stories in Nerdland, right?
Mm-hmm.
That start in one media and then get brought into other forms of entertainment, right? So it could start as a book and go to a game and then a movie, or it could start as a game and then there's a book, and you know what I mean? And then we have a story that's told across all these different medium, right? And I'm curious as to y'all's thoughts on how those medium change how the story is presented, right? Because a book is going to have so much more nuance, and you are keyed into thoughts and emotions that you have to observe in those other medium. How do you feel like that affects a story that's still being told, like The Witcher? It sounds like.
Well, The Witcher's already been told from the books to the games. That's the complete.
That's the complete story. Yeah. Okay.
So this is the show is just retelling from the beginning with the books.
Yeah, it's telling what the books are. It's not what the game has told. So if they're smart, but I understand what Tara's saying, because are they going to end the TV series right when the game starts, or are they going to continue to tell the story all the way to the end of Geralt's end in the video games? Because you might have that overlap there of, okay, well, this is not how it happened in the game, or this isn't how I remember it happening. But I think what Tara's talking about, what happens most, and this is where I'm least expert, or least amount of information or knowledge I have in the nerd world, is anime. It happens a lot in anime, where it'll start in as a manga, and then it'll become an actual anime, and then it might become a movie, or a video game, and then you also have the cross culture thing, like Mr. Soul Creek said, with if it starts as a manga, it's obviously going to have Japanese or Chinese or Korean cultural aspects to it that are going to be changed to meet a wider audience for the anime. I don't know how I would describe it, but there are always going to be issues where the original content creator, i.e. the manga or book writer or whoever it may be, is going to butt heads, or the fans who fell in love with the manga are going to butt heads with the people who fall in love with the anime, and so on and so forth, because it's going to tell it differently than they expected it to be told.
I would have to say, knowing that the complete story is from the books through the game, that for me, from a writer's perspective, I would think that would be the most difficult transition to continue a story from a book to a video game, purely because
Mm-hmm.
there's different mechanics, right? Because it not
Mm-hmm.
only is it a story, but it also has to be a game. And there's so
Mm-hmm.
many criteria that has to meet in order for it to be a good
Mm-hmm.
game, you
Yes.
know?
So I agree with Soul Creek that, the story, the changes are unnecessary, you know, and that's really what, in my opinion, ruins a lot of anime adaptations into the Western culture. It never
Mm-hmm.
works. For more Western stuff, like European stuff, like The Witcher, I feel like they do a better job, but maybe just because it's already Western and closer to our
Mm-hmm.
culture than it is to Eastern culture. But I yeah, and I don't think I really hate whenever we in the West try to create an adaptation of an anime or anything Eastern culture
Mm-hmm.
because it never works.
Oh, and I completely agree with that sentiment. Like I said, I'm not an anime guru, so I can't give like expertise on this. I would have to, bow out to you, 22, uh, mainly because I have watched animes, like, and said, "Oh, I love this anime; it's awesome," and then people tell me, "You don't know anything about it. Have you read the manga?" I was like, "No, it's the same, right?" And they'd be like, "Oh no," so
Yeah.
I'd be like, "What? Just like I thought the fight scenes were cool." It's like.
Yeah, personally, I just enjoy the anime. I know a lot of them are based off of the mangas, but I don't read. I don't read manga. I don't like to read books, so it's just I enjoy the
So,
show for what it is.
just for some remedial lessons for the
Hey,
noob
Pavan.
here, a manga, is that like a Japanese
Comic
comic
book.
book? Okay.
What's up, Pavan?
Yeah.
Hello.
So, so let me
Um,
see. For example, hot topic I know, but why should I care about the modern social politics in a story that is not based on our modern society? Oh no, I agree. I hate it when a video game and a game that comes to mind that's a blaring example of this is a game that I actually absolutely loved was Dragon Age, the most recent one, Inquisition.
Inquisition.
Uh huh. I thought that game was amazing, but there's a point in the game where one of your characters makes it very clear that they're gay. Makes it very clear, but it feels
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
it was just interjected in there,
yeah.
like it was just put in there so you had a gay character, and it's just like why that had no nuance in the story. There had no reason for that to be a thing. Why? Um, and it was put there for no other reason other than inclusivity. And I don't have a problem with, homosexual, transgender, whatever community you're part of. I'm accepting of all people. My best friend in the world, who I served in the military, she is now transgender. She has no longer the man I knew her as many years ago. So I don't have a problem with those people or their culture or their communities. I'm actually a very big supporter of them. But at the same time, don't interject things for the simple reason of inclusivity.
Yeah,
Like there's
that
yeah.
no reason for that.
a lot of media is doing that now, where they're just throwing in a gay
Mm-hmm.
character for the sake of having a gay character. But then
Mm-hmm.
even like I say leave it out and don't bring attention to it, because when you bring attention
Thank
to it,
you.
then people aren't going to the gay community still isn't happy. Like with the Avengers, that small gay character for those 5 minutes that he was in the movie, and then gay people come out and like that's not enough. We need like a main character to be gay. Like
Well, and it's not even just that. It takes away from what I have always understood that these communities have always strived for, which is acceptance and normalcy.
yeah.
Like if you point it out and you shine a giant spotlight on it and make it feel what feels like interjected for no other reason other than inclusivity, it makes it feel stick out like a sore thumb
This is
when most of the people that I know in these communities, they don't want to stick out like a sore thumb. They just want to go about their life and be normal.
this is
Like
the same thing that we did with race, right? when people were like, oh, we need to be more inclusive. So they would just bring in the token black guy so that they could say they had somebody that was non-white, right? I think and I'm going to give an example of this, and no one's going to be shocked that I'm bringing this up, but it needs to be real, as though these are people. Some of them might be white, some of them might be brown, some of them might be yellow, some of them might be gay, some of them might be bi. You know what I mean? Like it shapes who they are, but that's not an integral. If it's not an integral part of the story, then just allow that to color their character and don't make it all about that. One example that I want to point out that this character was gay, and it influenced the character in terms of, you know, the way that it colored the character, but it was never a thing that was directly addressed, and that's Dumbledore in the Harry Potter universe. Dumbledore's always been gay. He was always gay, but the books never said that. And I'm not saying, you know, that it's not okay to include it, but it's because it didn't matter.
Right.
It's because it was just like, you know, like people's eye color or blood type or
it should be a natural thing it shouldn't be interjected. I 100% agree with what you're saying.
Yes, Ellie in The Last of Us. Thank you for bringing that up. I love her.
It should be 100% a natural progression. You shouldn't find out about it like, you know, shining a spotlight on it. It should be, hey, they kissed, and just move on.
Yep.
Like who cares unless it's like, you know. And I can't think of a single storyline that I've seen in recent times where the fact that the person is gay is integral to the storyline of itself. Like, I just can't think of anything.
Yep. Yes, Mr. Soul Creek, I agree with that.
You should write a character who happens to be gay, not a gay. Exactly. Like, and it feels like a lot of these companies, whether it's video game, movie, TV show, it's like they go to the people, the pitching board, and they say, all right, we need to make a TV show that's about a transgender superhero. How about just write a TV show about a superhero, and if they happen to be transgender, then so be it. It should be a natural progression, not a, hey, this is what we're evolving it around, because it makes everything else feel like it was everything else. Like what's the second thought? One of the biggest recent things that I can think of that comes to mind is when they did the Batgirl thing. When that TV show came, the Netflix series Batgirl, it came out, or was it ABC series, whatever it was, they focused so much on the sexuality and the woman empowerment of Batgirl that the actual story felt underwhelming, to say the very least. It was just, in my opinion. I mean, if you like Batgirl, you like Batgirl. But
I never watched the show.
Another video game, a video game that I feel like did it well, was the last season of The Walking Dead. And this is unique to this game series because it is a choose your own adventure. But there were two characters that you could tell, depending on how choices you made, could be romantic interests for the character. Obviously, main character being female, there was a male love interest, and then there was a female love interest, and depending on the choices you made, it was up to the viewer which way you went. Now, I think that's smart, and it didn't matter that one was female and one was male. You know what I mean? It didn't push you in any one way. There was no reaction by other characters. There was none of that. It was just...
Yeah, it was under this, hey, I'm glad you came out of the closet, you know.
Right. There wasn't confetti dropping, balloons falling from the sky, you know what I mean? It was just... And you could tell, even if you, at baseline, there was some interest, right? That the was built into the story. There was some interest in both of these characters, and based on how you played it out, depended on which one became the love interest. Or I don't know this because I only played through it once, but you could probably have done neither too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You could have shied away from romantic interest at all. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was
No, and you're right.
the speed I would like to see.
Yeah, so Pavin mentions Dragon Age Origins. I haven't played that one, but I played 2 and 3. But I do know in Origins and Dragon Age 2, it like yeah, you can choose your romance, and it can be a whatever sex, and nothing is
But it
really.
wasn't. But it wasn't like a focal point at that point.
Yeah, that's what
You
I
know
was gonna say. Because like in Inquisition, you can
It
still
was very much
choose
so.
who to romance, but then the character being gay actually becomes a thing. Like he
Mhm.
talks about, the issues with his parents and all that shit, and it's
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
yeah,
Like they made it. They interjected it in such a way where it felt like it was not natural.
yeah,
Mhm.
Like it felt like it was, interjected for, like I said, for no other reason other than inclusivity, and that just doesn't work. It
yeah,
just like I can't think of a single person that I know personally, that's and I know some pretty old school individuals, that have a problem with characters of any specific group being in their media, whatever media they consume, as long as it feels like it's a natural progression of the character and it feels natural to the story being told. That what people get upset about is when it is interjected for no reason in relation to the story.
yeah,
You
and
know.
to go like a little bit, well, further outside of this realm of just games and stuff, my a big issue I've always had is in sports when
Hmm.
being gay or being black or whatever is highlighted to the point where like you know Michael Sam can win Man of the Year award just for coming out as gay,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
a black coach finally makes it to the Super Bowl or some shit. Like who cares? He's just a good
Yeah,
coach. Like
it's all these things. It's like, you see it all the time.
Didn't
First woman in space, or first
yeah,
woman this, or and I'm not bashing on women. Please don't take it that way, especially Utah. I'm not bashing on women. I love women. Ask the nerdy wife. But the reality of it is they people want to focus on these groups, for lack of a better way of putting it, because it gets ratings. I
yeah,
think that's the biggest thing. It gets
yeah.
people to create
It's like when
what's
Caitlyn Jenner
drama.
won the award at the big sports.
the ESPY award for the
Yes.
Yes.
Courage Award
Yes.
Hmm.
And it's like
that had been previously given to like cancer survivors or
Yeah.
fucking Muhammad Ali or
Hmm.
I don't yeah
and I'm not taking away from
Who they are.
who they are or that it does take courage to to be who you are, right? But
Hmm.
I felt like it was I don't know. I just didn't
it was super
it didn't feel genuine at
yeah
all.
Right. Yeah. It's that natural progression, like I said, but that's
that
just
Yeah.
the Caitlyn Jenner thing was a huge publicity move. That's
yeah.
all it
Well, and
was.
and everything. Even if I don't want to get too far into politics because that gets out of nerd culture too much. But I mean, they do that with everything. Anything that makes the biggest waves. Like look at the Greta Thunberg thing. They gave her the award for being a hero.
Yeah,
She did nothing. She skipped school and came and gave a speech and told everybody how bad they were, and that's it.
she basically ranted on TV,
Yeah.
And it
which is
came
what we
out
do.
that she didn't even write any of it. She was just repeating stuff that her father had written.
Like, where's our
Right.
award?
But
We're ranting right now on stream.
I know,
I
right? I
rant
rant
on a
all
daily
the
Yeah.
time.
basis.
All the time. I want my hero award or my Nobel Prize or whatever is out there. I want it. I deserve it.
I want a
But
Purple Heart. I broke my arm.
you had to get that in combat. I'm sorry.
Well, I was combating the snow and
The
wind.
snow won.
Hey, you want to know a fun fact? I actually I shattered these teeth here.
Oh.
Reconstructed while I was learning how to ski. Back
It's a
in
dangerous sport. Nobody. Here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, this is not nerd related at all, but I just want to point out that everybody knew I was going snowboarding for the first time ever. And it wasn't until after I came home with a broken arm that people start coming out with their horror stories like, oh yeah, I shattered my right arm, I broke my leg, I broke a rib. All three of those are real stories I didn't know about until I came home with a broken arm.
Nobody warned me.
I was not
Here's a
well
question.
warned.
When you wiped out, I mean, because you obviously wiped out, did you get an ooh factor?
A what?
Did you get an ooh factor when you wiped out and broke your arm?
Joe, my boyfriend Joe was the only one paying attention to me, and because we were on the bunny slopes, I was still learning, and I basically fell, and then I didn't move, and he was like, something's probably wrong. She's still on the ground.
So yours was relatively private. You want to know how I shattered my teeth? Would you like to hear this story?
Yes, I would.
So I was learning to ski, and they had a hill that was a bunny hill, and then they had like this bunny hill from hell right next to it.
Yep.
That was like super steep. So I had I felt like I'd mastered the with skis you have it's what is it? It's French fry then pizza, to speed up and slow down and learn how to stop and everything. So I was like, I'm going to go down the hill from hell. Well, my parents and my sisters were in like the little lodge they had right next to the hill. And I'm going down this thing. I get to the top and I go down this hill. And I felt like I hit like Mach 1. My skis are like starting to come off of the snow. And for whatever reason, I hit a bump and I bent my knees. And I bent them in such a way where I couldn't stop from bending and my knee hit my chin.
Wow.
I bit through my bottom teeth, and when that happened, my skis crossed, and it was like a snow explosion. My skis flew off of my feet. Everything goes over, and my parents said, "Yeah, we were in there," and then everybody turned, and you heard it was. They said it was an audible. Oh. my dad said he was looking out the window. He was like, "And that's my son." So. Yeah.
Yep.
At least yours was relatively quiet. I had probably about 50 people go, ooh.
Yeah.
So that was a fun time. I don't think I've skied since. So.
Well, I will do it again. That's the last thing I want to say on that subject.
Yeah.
I will prove to myself that I can do it without dying.
Well, I came out of.
Sounds awful, Mr. Soul Creek.
Oh wow!
Oh, shit.
Nosebleed and then sneezing. You become like that dinosaur from Jurassic Park, where like just shoot stuff at people.
Velociraptor.
Well, I came out of
Velociraptor. Is that it?
I don't think it was. I came out of my first skiing experience pretty fine. So that's all I got to say.
Can Nerdy see? Nerdy, can you see the chat?
I see chat.
Yeah.
I'm watching you guys right now.
Yeah, he's just ignoring you. He can see it. He's just ignoring you.
I saw all the goat things. I said hi. You're just obsessed with the. You know what? You screw one goat in a video game, and some people just never let it down.
Well, hey,
it doesn't matter how many people I save, and it's not Nerdy the people saver or the world saver, or Nerdy the race winner. No, it's Nerdy the goat fucker.
I mean, we were just practicing what we preach and not highlighting the goat love because it's just natural.
It's just
there's nothing,
we support all forms of love, including goat love.
There's no reason to bring attention to it. What do you want him to get the goat fuck award?
Yeah, I know. Am I getting a hero award now for being the goat fucker? All right, let's to change subjects real quick.
Right.
Get into trouble with
all right. Did you have anything else that you
I wanted to talk about the Pokemon debacle.
Oh yeah. Okay. I don't know much about that. I saw something about it. Maybe saw somebody's tweet about it, but go ahead.
Okay. So the big Pokemon debacle, if you guys are unaware, Game Freak announced in the past week that they are doing DLCs for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, to give you some backstory on what the debacle's about, when Sword and Shield came out, there were a bunch of Pokemon, well-known Pokemon at that, things like Bulbasaur, that were not in the game. Game Freak originally said that they just could not get the models to work. They couldn't get them. They just couldn't get it to work properly in the game. So
That sounds
that's
like
why they weren't
bullshit.
in there. So that's why you had the Dexit, the Pokemon, the Pokedex, the big whatever you want to call it. I call it debacle, but you people want to call it drama or whatever. The problem is what people found later in the game through hacking is that the models existed in the game. Now, the individual hackers that did, the hacking and were able to get some of the models to actually be available in the game, work in the game, they found that the Pokemon were unbalanced. They were, quote unquote, basically unfinished.
Which is probably why you had to hack it to get to them.
Right.
I mean, what do you
Something
expect?
a lot of people don't realize is there's a lot of things that are put in games during the course of development that are still in there, but the developers chose not to actually put it in the main game because it wasn't finished. It wasn't an asset that they could use in the game properly, or they didn't have time to do it. But people were upset about it because these Pokemon weren't in the game. They weren't able to transfer their original Pokemon from previous games to the new game. So fast forwarding to now, actually, before we get too far to now, in November, they asked if they were going to do DLC for Pokemon. Now, Game Freak is on record. I can't argue with this one. They are on record saying no, there will be no DLC for Sword and Shield. What you got is what you got. Well, in this past week, they announced the DLCs. They also put out a patch and everything. And the way the DLC announcement was, it seemed to a lot of people and big name celebrities, big name, not celebrities, but influencers, people like Angry Joe, who came out and openly attacked Game Freak because it seemed, as the way they announced it, that you're going to have to pay for the DLC to get these additional Pokemon. Well, they're wrong. If you look into the actual announcement, you look into everything that was there, they already gave the Pokemon to everybody in the update. We're getting the update. They're updating everything for what's going to be the, I think it's called Pokemon Home, where you're going to be able to bring all your Pokemon from previous platforms into Sword and Shield. You're already getting all the Pokemon. But everybody wanted to attack Game Freak for making this DLC and making you pay for Pokemon, which is not the case at all. Now, the other thing is they said they weren't going to do a DLC. We can debate that. My standpoint is they probably didn't want to tell you the DLC was coming, to be entirely honest. They didn't want it to affect holiday sales. They didn't want to affect anything they were doing. Is that nefarious? You be your own judge on that. But I honestly think that it wasn't nefariousness. It was more of we weren't ready to announce the DLC.
Yeah, I think at the same time it could, maybe they just meant that, and maybe people hear DLC and they think paid content. So maybe they just meant that they weren't releasing paid DLC. So
Okay, let's see. Mr. Soulcreek said hackers found totally complete Pokemon. That's incorrect, Mr. Soulcreek. They were complete as far as the textures and stuff were there, but even all the articles I read on they found that the move sets that were associated with the Pokemon in the game were unbalanced and were overpowered or underpowered in relation to the Pokemon in the game. I can, even in the article that you linked to me, there was the same statement put on that article in reference to some of the Pokemon. And I can find other articles. I found more articles in reference to that. So yes, they may have found Pokemon that could be used in the game that were more or less workable, but they weren't balanced properly for the game. So they were in effect still unusable in the game and were not complete for the game as it was written. So let's see, the new Pokemon are usable without the DLC, but without either paying for the Pokemon Bank or the DLC, you're basically not able to get these monsters. Again, you don't have to pay for the DLC. You can trade with other people who have the DLC. You can transfer it through the Pokemon Bank. If you're asking for something other than what is in the actual base title. And this is something you guys can chime in. Please Pokemon Sword and Shield were complete games. You got a beginning, a middle, and an end. You got the ability to grind out all the Pokemon that were in that game. There isn't anything that's coming with the DLCs is additional to the game, so you should pay for it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they gave you the update where you don't even have to pay for the DLC to get the Pokemon. If your friend wants to go get the DLC, then your friend can trade the Pokemon to you. Let's see, one trade lasts for 2 to 5 minutes because the connection trading over 200 monsters is ridiculous. Well, that's a what's the word I'm looking for? A network issue. That has nothing to do with the game itself. They found a bunch of legendaries that even their special moves, the unbalanced ones, where the monsters got ported by the hackers themselves. But okay, I'll find these articles for you. But they, like I said, the ones that they found, the hackers, were completely unbalanced. They were unfinished. Like I said, completely unfinished. Like, that's the point. Whether they couldn't finish them, they couldn't get the balance done right, or whatever. Then this kind of relates to the whole delay thing. Maybe they should have delayed the game so they got all the Pokemon in it. But then I would have been angry that they delayed it. But
Yeah.
My point is I don't think there's as much nefariousness to this Pokemon drama that people are pointing out that there is. I just don't think it's there. You know, like I said, in the same week, people are pissed off that a company released a DLC, which is additional content, and I would have to say pretty reasonably priced DLC. You're getting 2 DLC additional areas to the game, a new Pokemon, not just the Pokemon that weren't in the Pokedex to begin with that people got pissed off about, but they're making additional Pokemon for these areas, and they're adding a whole bunch of customization stuff, all this stuff, and people completely overlooked that and wanted to bash on Game Freak, but in the same week say, "Oh, good job, CD Projekt Red, you delayed your game." Like, it's completely hypocritical, and the fact that the people are willing to just focus on the negative on things. Like, to be entirely honest, if you looked at Angry Joe's Twitter right after he put out their Angry Joe news, and this was a segment on that, they got annihilated on Twitter. Like, the people came out of the woodwork showing them that everything that they had said was completely wrong. Like, to the point where Angry Joe had to go on Twitter and say, "Okay, we're going to fix it. We're going to go back and re-edit things." And that's a big deal because, considering Angry Joe's that big of an influencer, he has 2 or 3 million people that subscribe to him. But that's the industry. Let's jump on something and be angry about it at the same time. For something just as bad, let's praise them for it. It doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make any sense.
Tara's gonna pee, everyone.
I'm taking a bathroom break.
Tara's gonna pee.
BRB. Talk amongst yourselves.
Do you wait? Do you have to leave 22 to be your hands?
No. No. Well, yeah, I was gonna bring up another topic on DLC, but I'll wait till she comes back.
Well, okay, I will say hi to Lisa. Hi, how you doing? Glad to hear you're having a good day. Let's see, Mrs. Soul Creek still. Pokemon Sword and Shield are full games, that's true, but they are also part of the major franchise. All previous games had vastly more content themselves. A giant count of monsters and battle features, plus 6 to 12 hours post story. This new title did not have that. All this that was missing from the game in comparison to the older entries is now added as DLC. Well, there are a lot of games that you could say that was the norm before the industry standard changed. Like, if you're going to be angry at Game Freak, you need to be angry at every single game out there that does DLC. First of all. Second of all, I would say that...
Oh, hi, Lisa.
The post-story stuff... yeah, I can see being upset about that, but I would say that they focused much more intensively with the Sword and Shield stuff, with multiplayer. The multiplayer aspect in Sword and Shield, in my opinion, is much deeper than, say, in previous Pokemon titles. So maybe, I'm not trying to give them excuses, but it could be very possible that they spent more time on that multiplayer aspect, treating that as the end game versus an end game story content. But you're angry at all publishers and developers that does that shit. Well, then you're just an angry German. That's okay then. I love Soul Creek. He's one of my favorite people. So
Yeah,
we give each other shit all the time. But I mean, that is a fair point, though. To be angry at the industry as a standard, I'm with you on that one, Mr. Soul Creek. You've heard me bitch about it. You've heard me bitch about it many times. I cannot stand day one patches, and I cannot stand how a lot of times we get games that are incomplete on release. Pisses me off. I should be able to put a game into my system if I have an actual physical copy. If I'm putting a disc in my system, it should play the game and it should be complete, 100%. If it's not, the developer and the publisher are wrong.
looks like they should have delayed the game.
But see, it looks like they should have given themselves enough time and put out a date that was giving them enough time to finish it. But everybody has reasons why this doesn't happen. We didn't want to have crunch. Speaking of crunch, development crunch. How do you feel about that? Where they talk about the crunch, where they have to work an exorbitant amount of hours and time, and it's unfair to the employees. Have you been following any of that stuff?
I've heard a little bit about it. What exactly are people saying about it?
Oh, well, they just make it a big deal every time a new game comes. They had to crunch their employees, and it was crunch time, and they act like that it's something that only happens in the video game industry. A lot of times when you read these articles, they're like, "Well, the video game industry needs to make sure this doesn't happen. This is just unfair to the employees." You've been around the block at least for a little while. I can't say that I've been in any industry working where there wasn't a period of time where there was crunch.
I mean, crunch it just happens to be a term used in the game industry, but I mean, you want to fucking talk about crunch, like join the military.
Thank you.
Like, for fuck's sake.
Mm-hmm.
You spend your whole life on crunch.
I mean, you want to talk about a crunch, or they bitch about, for the last 3 months before the game release, we had to work, super long hours. So go into deployment.
Yeah.
Get prepared for deployment, and then have to recover from the deployment, because everybody likes to think, recovery, that sounds nice. Fuck no, recovering from fucking deployment or going to the field is awful, because you gotta clean everything, you gotta catalog everything, you gotta it's a pain in the dick. So I can't. But it's not just the military; it's any industry. You think as a person who works in a hospital, you don't have crunch. You have yearly inspections. Do you really think the hospital stays to the level that they are at when an inspection comes around the entire time? That is, you would be dumb if you believe this. That's just not how it works.
Yeah.
So every industry has crunch. I mean, your burger Joe working at McDonald's. You don't think you have crunch time? Oh, I'm pretty sure lunchtime and dinner time sucks.
Or in Texas, if you work at Whataburger between 1 and 3 a.m.
Yeah, look, even Pavin's saying, and I know for a fact Pavin has to work himself to death. He has it every June. The man works himself to, it happens in every industry. Whataburger. It's not Whataburger. It's
Whataburger.
It's Whataburger.
What a burger.
Whataburger.
Whataburger.
Yeah, they say it weird down there.
Yeah.
Crunch is every industry on the planet relying on long-term crunch to finish a product is a dick move. but relying on long-term crunch is just something that's going to happen. It doesn't matter what industry or anything, you always are going to have that crunch at the end, because like everything else, inevitably something bad is going to happen that's going to delay what you're getting done. How do you avoid crunch? Well, first of all, not setting dates that are unachievable. That's how you avoid crunch, which then would also avoid the delays that we've been bitching about this entire time. Like, it's proper management and proper time management and proper, understanding and expectations of your employees and of the people who are, managing those employees. But apparently people don't want to have that.
Or wear a condom. Yeah,
sure. Or wear a condom. All right, so you were going to say, what about DLC?
Yeah, so now that Tara's back on the topic of DLC.
Wait, am I saying her name wrong? Is it Tara or Tara?
It's Tara.
I'll answer to either.
Yeah. It looks like Tara because there's an H at the end.
Yep.
Could be Tara.
Tara.
Tara. Tara. Tara.
Tara. Tara.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kingdom Hearts 3.
Uh-huh.
So I said before how disappointed I was in the game. That playthrough is actually interesting, going back to watch it, because we started off so high on the game.
Yeah.
And you could just see the progression.
Our progressively get
sadness seeping in.
Yeah.
The progression of the depression is how I say it.
So I had no history with Kingdom Hearts the way most people did. I'd never, seen any of the 1 and 2.
I thought she would enjoy it just because it was Disney.
But I do love Disney, and that's valid. I love Disney. So I thought, this is like my world and AD's world together. Like, this could be so cool. And then
why can't we be friends?
Yeah.
Why can't we be friends?
And then it just wasn't so cool at all.
It took a hard turn, like at the halfway point, when everything was just so disappointing. And
and I had already been briefed on, this is a hard story to follow because it's so,
because she was basically coming in at the tail end of all these fucking games and all these side stories.
That's honestly why I haven't played it. It looks like a fun game, but
I don't even care about the story, honestly. I was just playing it because I had played it 13 years ago and I wanted a conclusion. But on the topic of DLC and conclusion, the ending was so fucking bullshit. How they kind of like it seemed like the story had finally come to an end after all these fucking 27 games or whatever the fuck they had. It seemed like the story was finally coming to an end, and then there's another new issue suddenly comes up and they leave you on a cliffhanger. So I'm like, fuck, now I gotta play the next game that comes out and finish it. But it turns out they're finishing the story through fucking DLC, which means I just paid for a full game with an incomplete story that they plan to finish later in DLC. That's fucking stupid.
Well, I mean,
that you also have to pay for, I'm sure.
Yeah.
As much as I agree with what your thought process is, though, do you get as upset when you go to a movie and you finish the movie and it leaves you on a cliffhanger?
Well, no, I'm not mad about the cliffhanger. I'm mad about that. I thought the story would be completed in a whole new full game like Kingdom Hearts 4.
Oh, okay.
But now the fact that I know that I was just sold an incomplete story that would later be finished through extra content, that's the part that I'm pissed about.
So I feel like the equivalent to that would be if you went to a movie and they left you on a cliffhanger and then they did a YouTube video to finish it off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
a YouTube video that you had to pay for.
Analogy.
Right.
Great analogy. Oh, I think, okay, yeah, I can see that. I can see people being pretty pissed about that. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
I love that. That was good. That was good.
At this point, the game was so... I have no desire to come back to it. I'm probably just gonna end up watching the fucking DLC just for the sake of having a complete story in my head, because it was I need to be done with it.
So being a person who's never played the previous Kingdom Hearts, since you said you would watch it, could a person like me play Kingdom Hearts 3 and understand the story and the conclusions
No,
that happen?
no.
No, not at all. So I should just leave that alone.
So okay, the story, Kingdom Hearts is not even a full story from 1, 2, and 3. You have to play all of the other side
400
games.
games.
Yeah, like the fucking the shit that was released on handheld consoles, whatever. Like you have to play all of those to even try to understand the full story. But I don't even think even then you would have to really pay attention to get it. I didn't play Kingdom Hearts 3 with the intention of uh following the complete story. I just played it because it was, kind of a nostalgia factor, and I wanted to kind of
Do you think
come
that's
back
why
to
the
some.
majority of players played it?
I think yeah, and I think that's where the majority of disappointment comes from, is because everyone who played it in their younger days 13 years ago was looking for some type of conclusion to a story that left them on a 13-year cliffhanger. And then when the conclusion comes out, it's like complete bullshit. Like it's just, it doesn't. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to say that the Disney part, that, and I don't know how they did it in the previous ones, but they created these worlds, each world based off of a different Disney movie world. It felt like they spent most of their time on the first like 2 worlds, and then the rest of them just got increasingly more disappointing.
Yeah.
And the turning point of that, in my opinion, was the Frozen world.
Frozen was the worst.
That was the significant turn from excited to this is not good.
Because like it was done well in the first 2 games, because I remember enjoying the full games, but it could have also been because I was young, but I remember them being done way better. Because there was actually thought put into it. The second world in Kingdom Hearts 3 was Tangled, which I had never seen the movie before playing it, but that world was so fun, and I ended up watching the movie, and the movie was so good.
We both decided to go watch the movie because they did such a good job.
And then you get to Frozen, and it's like there was no thought put into the Frozen world, because you were basically just going through the Frozen story.
Mr. Soul, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, you were basically just watching the movie with your characters as standing on the sidelines, and they even put the effort into recreating the fucking Let It Go scene, like shot for shot, recreating the Let It Go scene. They put all their budget into that, and nothing into like building the actual game part of it. Like
so was that like just a shameless, hey, watch the movie?
Yeah.
So you can get excited for the sequel coming out?
It was like, yeah, hey, Let It Go was such a big hit. Let's just put it in there. It'll make the fans happy.
And from a game perspective, like, and if you go watch the video, in fact, I encourage you to watch the video of us playing, or of AD playing the Frozen world, because the fact that this is one Disney character that has its own magical power, and she never fights with you, and you don't get to, they don't even incorporate that into the game at all. The only people you fight with are her sister.
No, you don't even fight with her sister. You fight with this fucking snowman that doesn't come until like the last fourth of the story.
Yeah, it was just not.
Yeah, so like Elsa is this super powerful, ice queen or where the fuck, and the game manages to turn her into a fucking damsel in distress. She's not a fighting character.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
So
she's basically all cutscene.
Yeah.
I was considering getting the game for, like, say, my daughter or my son, but the way it sounds, it just doesn't sound good at all.
Yeah, it's bad. The Frozen is really where it went from the super speed up of the progression of
What
depression.
was the one before Tangled? Was that Toy Story?
Yeah, Toy Story was first, and then Tangled.
And they did a decent job with the Toy Story world. I'll give them that. Like, I wasn't disappointed because there's Andy's house, and then you go to the toy store, and like, there's a lot of characters that you are actually engaged in gameplay with. Tangled was good. Was the best one in my opinion, and then it just really
Monsters Inc. was
I because I love Monsters Inc. so much, I wasn't pleased.
So here's my question: Is your enjoyment of the movies going to affect your enjoyment of that game? Like, if you don't like the movie Frozen, for example, are you going to dislike the game even more?
If you don't like Frozen, you should not play the Frozen world because all it is the Frozen movie over again.
Basically, yeah.
Like Kingdom Hearts, up to this point, to my knowledge, had never had a musical scene. They never included any of the Disney songs into the game, but just for Frozen, they decided to redo the entire Let It Go sequence just for fans because whatever.
Well, and did I heard, and trust me, I don't understand the story of Kingdom Hearts at all, but from my understanding, Kingdom Hearts always had Final Fantasy characters in it.
Yeah, that's another thing. There were no Final Fantasy characters.
I was gonna say, I heard that there were absolutely no Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts 3.
And they're bringing them back in the DLC.
So, well, okay. So is Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC then? Is this their way of listening to the fandom and fixing what was wrong?
I don't. Well, maybe adding Final Fantasy characters could be a response, but they definitely intended the story to be the way it was, with the incomplete story in the main game and finishing it through DLC. I don't know about the Final Fantasy characters, if that was planned or not, but the whole story part of it is what pisses me off.
Well, that just sounds like a whole big bummer. Like if they did it just to sell the DLC, then I would agree that then they did the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I just felt like they didn't keep in mind that their audience had aged 13 years.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 didn't seem like it was made for the longtime fans. It felt like it was made for new kids.
Yeah.
Which I can understand. I can understand that, but you have to know.
So did it feel like a reboot then?
No, it was definitely it was basically like they just made it just to finish the fucking story that had been waiting for 13 years.
So what they did is they created a game that was targeted at a new group of a new audience.
Yeah.
But the new audience wouldn't understand what the game was about because they hadn't played the previous game. And the old audience that played the previous games isn't going to be happy with it because it doesn't have the same soul as the previous game.
Yeah.
Precisely.
So it was just a fail everywhere.
It was just like, hey, it's been 13 years. We gotta finish this eventually. Let's just get it out there and be done with it.
Wow, that's okay.
It was almost like all they cared about was selling the games. They didn't actually care if you enjoyed the game at all.
Okay.
They marketed it to the younger kids with the new Disney movies. They marketed it to the nostalgia group because it's then they were like, well, we don't really care if you like it.
And I heard a review that actually made a good point about the game, is that Kingdom Hearts 3 had no original story of its own. It was basically made just to clean up all the other stories before it. So
yeah, like so basically because it's Square Enix that owns it, right?
Yeah.
So basically, Square Enix said Disney sells. We need some money. Let's do this. So
yeah, that's what Mr. Soul just quoted. Video Game Junkie.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens to be Disney.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Square Enix, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and hopefully that doesn't get delayed anymore.
Yeah.
You gonna be playing it?
I will. Yeah. I'm gonna have to juggle it. It's still, even with Avengers moving, the springtime is still pretty busy with Final Fantasy.
What?
Huh?
With what? I just don't see. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not excited about. So, like, the only game that I see coming out this spring that I'm excited about is Neo 2.
Yeah,
That's
I've
that's the
thought about
biggest
Neo
one.
2, but there's also Persona in March, which I'll probably do that.
Well, yeah. With Cyberpunk being delayed, I told my viewers that there's a possibility maybe I might play Persona, but dude, Persona's weird. Have you
I
seen? Have you played it?
No, yeah, I played 5 and I loved it. Like,
It's weird. You're fighting like devils on toilets.
yeah. It's weird.
Like
It's
like
super Japanese. It's
it's
super
weird.
Japanese.
Like
But
that was the first time I ever got to see anything from that game too. Like I popped in, I think it was Ruokan who was playing it. I popped in and he's fighting this devil on a toilet with this chick in like some skimpy big boobed outfit, and I'm like, what is going on? I don't understand. This is nope. I'm done. I'm out.
it does, yeah, it does have a great soundtrack. That's another thing, is like the music in that game was awesome. It was really between that and Near Automata. Like 2017 was a great year for fucking game
Now, Near
soundtracks.
Automata is something that I'm thinking about. Is that worth a play?
That's a
I got a
good.
couple
That's a
because I've been
really good story. It has a beautiful soundtrack. Um, the end theme alone, there's like multiple endings. Like you have to play through it a few times to get the full story, because you play first from one perspective and then you play the second time from another perspective.
mhm.
But if you the
Well,
end
because
theme really like ties the story together, and you have to actually it because it has
okay,
the end theme in English and then in Japanese and then in like its own in universe language.
okay.
And
Now, Near Automata is like an action game ish, right?
it's action RPG
Okay.
basically. Yeah.
Because like I've got Near Automata on my list. I've got Hellblade on my list. I'm definitely gonna be playing that. But I think I'm gonna wait to play that one until we get closer to Hellblade 2 coming out. You seen you saw the video for that, right? Well, you were
Yeah,
there
I
when we
saw
did
that.
it.
That was at the Game
Yeah,
Awards. Yeah.
yeah. That
Um,
one looks really good. I've never played the first one, so I'm definitely gonna play the first one.
I would definitely get near Automata in there at some point for you.
Okay.
And yeah, I loved Persona 5 though. It was one of my favorite games.
Okay. Well, I think we hit all the topics. Before we go though, like I gotta ask, Divinity Original Sin 2, how you liking it so far?
I'm loving it. It's fun. And the I'm into the stories, and it's the whole gameplay part of it is a big learning
Mhm.
experience.
Oh yeah, the
But
learning curve is big, isn't it? And we're
yeah.
playing on just normal difficulty. When
Yeah,
the
I
update.
was wondering about that because
Mhm.
I remember somebody in your chat was bringing up the difficulty, so I was
Mhm.
wondering what we were playing on.
Yeah,
But
we're playing on normal.
yeah,
It gets pretty brutal later on, even in normal. Like the last fight, I know it took me quite a few times to get it right. Um, so I gotta ask you this though: were you ever, like, I know we're getting towards the end. I don't know how much longer you have been here till the
I
afternoon.
think Tara's got to leave in about 15.
Okay, well this won't take long then. So the the Divinity Original Sin 2 being Larian Studios is making it. Were you ever a big CRPG guy? Did you ever play Icewind Dale or Baldur's Gate?
No, I've never. That's probably like the first type of that type of RPG that I've ever played. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Because Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale, they were a little bit different combat wise. This is turn based. Those were pausable action combat, similar to like Pillars of Eternity and stuff. Does it make you playing Divinity Original Sin 2? Does it make you more excited to see what's going to come out of Baldur's Gate?
I don't know much about Baldur's Gate. I've never really seen any of the games, but if it's like that, then I would be interested, because I mean,
Okay.
I'm definitely interested now, whereas I wouldn't have been previous to playing
Mhm.
Divinity. I think as far as like turn-based stuff goes, the closest I've probably ever played to anything like that is probably KOTOR.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah. Um, Yeah, I mean, and I see Chad. Is there any more news on Baldur's Gate? They put out a video here recently, or a tweet or some sort of announcement. I forget how it was. That they are going to give us more news. I think in February. What is the date? I'll tell you. Okay, give me the date in just a second. This is actually decent news. Everybody needs to mark their calendars for, because when Larry and Studio says they're going to give information, they mean they're going to give information. So give me a second. Baldur's Gate 3 news. Larian teases if something is brewing. Baldur's Gate 3. Tune in February 27th to find out. So that's the date that we're going to get some an official update.
Tune into what? Are they gonna?
I guess their YouTube channel or Switch or Switch, a Twitch channel.
Oh.
But it says something's So I'm guessing they're it'll be on their YouTube channel because there was a playable video saying, "Hey, tune in for more updates on that day." The teaser ends at 2:27. Caption the phrase is "Something's brewing," so it's going to be some sort of update. But that's a big game. That's going to be probably the biggest game in my Twitch career. That's the big one. That's my channel. I don't know if you know, but my channel was built upon CRPGs like DOS and PoE and all of those. So getting a game like that made by Larian Studios is going to be pretty epic, I think.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested.
Who knows? Maybe I can get you to do a playthrough of that one.
I'm down.
if we ever finish DOS.
Yeah. Sometime in the next year or so.
Yeah. We might finish it before Christmas.
Well,
I got nothing else.
Yeah, I think that's it. I had, because of the delay thing, it kind of took away my initial starting topic, but we can save it for the next show.
What was the starting topic? Maybe I can think on it for then. I can get angry for it.
Nah, it's not something to be angry about. It's just kind of we've been talking about like upcoming games and stuff that we're anticipating for 2020. So I kind of wanted to just do like a look back at 2019.
Why we could do that? You want me to come up with a list of like my 5 favorite games and 5 most disappointing gains or something like that?
Yeah, that would be something good. Yeah, we could do that.
I can get some lists together. That's perfectly fine. Speaking of lists, just kind of a plug for ourselves a little bit. The Mystery Science Gaming thing that we're working on. If you didn't know, Angry Joe put out his 16 worst games of 2019.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah,
Excellent.
we got 16 games to choose from for that new thing. Speaking of which, who else is going to be involved with that? I'm going to contact Kat this week to get the overlay done. It's going to be me, you.
I think. Well, so the thing with Chris now is that he's pretty much only available for one weekend a month. So I think if Tara's interested, we can plug her in.
I'm definitely interested.
Yeah, so it'll probably be us two, me and you, Nerdy, and then a mix of Tara and Chris.
Yeah, well, I could, so as I was asking, I can make it be, because I can make it instead of just 3, put 4. I just need to know what Tara wants to look like.
What does Tara want to look like?
What am I in?
Well,
in what context?
So Mystery Science Theater. You know how they have the silhouettes? So we're kind of making characters for everyone.
Yeah, so player 22 is gonna have like his little dude in the gas mask, and then I think we said Chris is gonna just look like a dirty veteran.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna go with my
devil
signature Clem hat. Clem from the Walking Dead game.
Yeah, so just make her look like Clem.
Okay.
With the curly hair or whatever. I don't know.
Okay. We'll figure out something, but we'll have something goofy. But I was thinking if he can only do it like once a month, or maybe we only do it once a month to start off to see how well it does. But it could be fun if we did it in the evening and maybe all of us started drinking with it too. That could be fun.
Okay.
Have a few drinks while doing it and make fun of it. So
I don't drink, but you guys can drink.
It's probably best that way. Somebody needs to control the stream.
Oh yeah, that's true. I gotta
idiots.
I gotta stay alert.
But yeah, look over the 16 games with Angry Joe. We can find something. There was one that really caught my eye that he actually put in there as a parody. It was something unicorn whatever. It was a unicorn game. It's probably I think it's the lowest reviewed game across all platforms for 2019.
Okay.
So that could be fun.
Can can I call dibs on playing the unicorn game? I feel like
Yeah, if it's simple enough, she can play.
I feel
it.
like if it's on my noob level, then
Yeah.
Absolutely. That gives three of us, me, player, and Chris to sit there and make fun of it the whole time.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great idea. But okay, so next show, so 2 weeks from today, have some lists. What kind of lists do you want? Just like favorites?
Yeah, I would say just a few of your favorites from 2019 and a few disappointments or worst games or
Okay.
whatever.
So like a top 5 best and top 5 worst.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that. I will have those by next week
Cool.
or next show. So
Yeah.
next
2 weeks.
since I haven't played as many games, I'm gonna bring my list, but it's going to be heavily on the watch factor. Like, you know what I mean? Because I observe a lot more games than I play.
Well, I know your top game is going to be Last of Us,
That's
and
not a secret.
your bottom game
Really?
is
Really? It's not
is
gonna be
probably.
Bayonetta?
Oh,
So here's the thing.
I don't know.
I do love Bayonetta, but I do think that Bayonetta it's got its own charm that doesn't. I don't know. I would like Bayonetta even if it was like a choose your own adventure game. You know what I mean? Like I just like the character Bayonetta, right? Whereas The Last of Us is so to me it shows how far we've come with games like
Yes.
and I don't want to get into it too much because I want to talk about it next week, but like
Soul Creek,
I was blown away by The Last of Us.
Soul Creek, we were talking about 2019, but because Tara's new, she's just going to do a general list of games that she's experienced.
I'm brand new. I'm only like a year and a half in.
Yeah.
So that's my area of expertise is noobness.
I bet the bottom of your list is probably going to be a David Cage game.
Yeah, it's in fact it's a specific David Cage game.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, does it tell the story of humanity and robots?
Yes, it does.
All right, well, let's not spoil too much. All right, well, let's do our outros then.
All right, so that's the end of the Nerd Show. We kind of went a little bit off topic a couple times and talked about some shit we didn't plan to talk about. But
but that's what makes us great.
That's what we do here, man. It's an improvised show.
You can't
for the most part
fence us in.
Thank you guys, everyone, for hanging out and joining the discussion. I have been Player 22. This has been Tara.
I'm Nerdy Farmer.
Is Nerdy Farmer. Follow him, Nerdy Farmer. That's your name pretty much everywhere, right?
Yeah, I'm Nerdy Farmer across all platforms.
Nerdy Farmer, everywhere you go. We are Player 22 here on the channel that you are watching us on. So
I feel like I'm doing a Disney sing-along.
Tara is doing something weird. I don't know what she's doing.
She's pointing at the thing to follow.
Yeah.
What do you think she was doing? She's like, it's instead of following the bouncing ball, it's following the thing.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you guys.
We need to work on these outros.
Yeah. It always gets interrupted by some bullshit.
Yeah, well.
Okay, well, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Smile and wave.
Smile and wave, boys.